Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today I wanted to go ahead and talk about Call of Duty again because unfortunately I just saw some numbers that are pretty worrisome for the franchise, honestly. Now I know this is kind of the typical cycle with Call of Duty, right, where the game will come out for about a month, it'll be super popular, everybody will be playing it, you know, the new COD's out guys, let's all hop on the new COD, but then of course after a couple weeks, I guess the honeymoon phase dies out, a lot of the player count just kind of, you know, goes and plays other games or whatever, they lose focus on Call of Duty. It is the typical cycle, but unfortunately from the numbers we're about to take a look at here, it appears that something different is happening with Call of Duty now. It's not the typical song and dance where, you know, everybody just wait till the next COD comes out, right? It appears now Call of Duty, at least from what we can see, is currently facing probably the biggest player crisis it's faced in years. And it's kind of insane to think because the current Call of Duty game that's out right now is Black Ops 6. So it's a very popular name, right? Call of Duty fans love Treyarch. They love the Black Ops franchise, right? So you would think that, of course, with that being the current popular out there game for COD, that the player counts would be great, you know, things would be looking good, but actually it's the complete opposite. It's the actual reverse of that. And I think it's at that point where we start to admit that Call of Duty might be in a little bit of trouble here. Now, a couple days ago, I made a video talking about a supposed situation going on within Activision where the player counts and the attention surrounding Warzone have been pretty lackluster recently, and they've been faced with a decision, and that decision is that since the returns on Warzone are becoming less and less lucrative, is it finally time going forward for Call of Duty to pull the plug on Warzone altogether? Now, the premise of this is that when Verdansk comes out and whatnot, if that's not enough to revive the player counts long term, enough for them to reverse whatever's been going on with Warzone over the last couple games or whatever, Warzone will basically end up ceasing to exist as of Call of Duty 2026, and they'll be, I guess, reassigning all of their, you know, resources and stuff that go into making Warzone to other areas of Call of Duty. Now, of course, we don't know 100% that that's going to happen yet, but it appears from everything that we do know, Warzone is basically on its last leg. Now, it's not just Warzone at this point that's on its last leg is the problem. So this is the Steam charts data for Call of Duty, okay? Now, keep in mind, Call of Duty on Steam and on PC and whatnot, it's had this unified app for a while now, so there's not individual Call of Duties being released on Steam. Basically, you download the Call of Duty HQ or whatever, and that's how you play it and install it and whatnot, right? So this has data for Call of Duty going back all the way to October 2022, and as of right now, over the last 30 days on Steam, Call of Duty is seeing its lowest player counts that it's seen altogether in the entirety of the last 3 years. So looking at the data all the way back into late 2022 into 2023, right, we saw that Call of Duty, you know, it had the typical cycle, right? In November, the game pops off, everyone's playing it again, everyone's back on COD and whatnot, and then of course over the following months, the game started to lose attention, started to die off, right? But you'll notice that the average players all the way up into the release of the next COD, you know, it stayed up in the like 80, 60,000s, with the peaks usually getting over 100,000 peak players at some point within the month, right? Which, you know, that's pretty alright, it's pretty good numbers, at least kind of keeping some of the player base around here, right? Well, the problem is when you go further up the chart to more recent Call of Duty games, you notice this very scary pattern for COD, where the peak player count altogether for Call of Duty on Steam was all the way back in November 2022, about 500,000 people playing. It has never reached that point again, okay? Now, once again, you might be thinking, oh, but Optimus, who cares, right? Well, they should care, because this is the same problem that they're having with Warzone, and this is the same, you know, issue that is reportedly causing Warzone to get to the point where they're considering shutting the doors on that. Now, when you look at the most recent Call of Duty game, right, Black Ops 6, the one that is out, the numbers are even worse. It's actually so bad that it's legitimately concerning altogether here. Now, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on Steam peaked at around 313,000 players. Not the peak that they had back in 2022, but still pretty respectable. respectable, right? You know, you got your players up. Well, over the last 30 days, keep in mind, it's only been, you know, about 3-4 months since this game even released. It has now dropped so far that about a quarter of the average player count that was there at the launch time for this game is still around. And not only that, but the peak player count for Black Ops 6 in the last 30 days hasn't even cracked 100,000 players on Steam. Now, I already know what a lot of you are thinking. Oh, but Optimus, you know, you're not considering all of the console players and all of the Game Pass players and all these different things. And while that's true, I can only assume as well that if this is the way that things are happening on Steam and we have this years-long trend that we have all of this evidence of, we can only really assume the same is happening across the board. I mean, there's no reason to think that it really wouldn't be, right? And keep in mind, this number here isn't even like multiplayer. It's not the multiplayer numbers like guaranteed. This is just people who are loading up the Call of Duty app in general, right? Maybe playing campaign, maybe they're playing zombies, maybe they're playing multiplayer. This is a pretty worrying trend for Call of Duty here. Now, obviously, Black Ops 6 has quite a while to go. It has a lot of time, and as of right now, it is not maintaining player counts, which is, I think, a scary thing for COD going forward, because even though it's gotten used to this trend of like the players kind of falling off over the subsequent months past release, I don't think they've ever planned for the numbers to end up this bad. I mean, we're looking at a point where a small fraction of the people who were playing COD just a couple months ago are still playing COD. And it also seems like over time, less and less people are becoming interested in this whole thing even playing out, right? Like me, for instance, I got on Black Ops 6 for the first time when it came out, right? And I was kind of excited to play it with my friends and whatnot. We had a good couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks of gameplay. And then as I'm assuming many other people too, have just gotten bored and have decided, fuck it, this is just not worth playing. There's other shit to play. There's other games that are going to keep my attention that I could be playing, right? So Call of Duty is at a point where, you know, all of the industry insiders are suggesting that Warzone, the numbers are falling off so badly that if Verdansk cannot save Warzone, it will be on its way out the door. The Steam charts, the publicly facing data that we can all look through and parse, suggests that only like 20-25% of people who were playing at launch are still playing COD at all at this point, just a few months in. And so also there was an update to Black Ops 6 just recently that I think is pretty interestingly timed, right? Now, I don't know why, of course, this shit can't actually just be involved in the game at launch. I think that would probably help at least a little bit when it comes to shit like this, but they added daily login rewards to Black Ops 6. Once again, they waited until like 4 months after the game even came out in the first place, after 80% of people are no longer fucking playing the game in the first place. They waited until then to put any of this out. But I also want to point out, and I hate to be as negative as I'm being, right? Because it seems like I'm being pretty like doomer when it comes to Call of Duty, but it's because they're giving so many reasons to be doomers about it, right? These rewards fucking suck. Let's be honest. I mean, we got some double XP and weapon XP tokens. We've got stickers. We've got sprays and calling cards. So there's nothing of actual value that they're giving you for playing the game. I mean, you're 4 months in. Most of the people who actually still really give a shit about COD in the first place and are like really grinding and playing, most of them are probably already max level as is, or like getting close to max level. Like this double weapon XP and XP tokens, that shit really doesn't change anything because the people that are still playing have probably been playing since launch. All the other people who like, you know, they lost interest or whatever, we've already got off the game. And I'm sorry, but some double weapon XP tokens, some calling cards, bro, that's not going to get me back on wanting to play every day, right? It's just not going to be enough. You would think that with the way things are going, if you're going to introduce some login rewards, you can't throw in a fucking skin or like a weapon camo or something, you know what I mean? Like, this is just pathetic at this point, right? It's very clear that they've hemorrhaged a shit ton of players and they're trying to do things, you know, to bring people back. But I think that's precisely the problem. They wait until 85% of the fan base has stopped playing the game before they start putting shit like this into the game to encourage people to even play in the first place. Now, am I saying that if there were daily login rewards from day one and like competitive ranked play on day one, things like that, all the time, that would solve every problem that Call of Duty has? No, probably not, but at the end of the day, it would probably be doing better than it is now, where we're wondering if fucking Warzone is even gonna exist in 3 years. We're wondering if Black Ops 6 is gonna be capable of even barely scraping some of the numbers that the last few CODs were able to. And keep in mind, when it comes to like the last 3-4 years of Call of Duty, a lot of it has been pretty negatively received by a lot of the community anyway, right? So you would think that Black Ops 6 would be able to compete with these games easily. There'd be no problems, right? They'd just be able to fucking knock this one out of the park. Like I said, Treyarch, they're probably by far the most popular COD developers. Black Ops 6 is probably by far the most popular like in-game franchise at this point. You would think that it would be able to hold its own, but man, it really just isn't holding its own. I mean, even in the last 30 days, 20% of the players that were still there, which was already a fraction to begin with, now 20% of them are gone. And if this continues to be the trend here in the next couple of months, Call of Duty is going to be averaging like maybe 15% of its launch player base, which I'm sorry, that is pathetic for a game that is now a live service game. It's a game that Activision is annually spending hundreds of millions of dollars to develop. And sure, they're still making their money. They as a company, they're not struggling, they're not hurting, but Call of Duty as a franchise is actually hurting here. And I think it's pretty hard to deny at this point. Like, the only people who are still hanging on and denying like, oh, but bro, the numbers don't matter, COD is still gonna be great. It's just people who, they don't give a fuck anyway. Like, you could show them anything in the world that should bother them, you know, the skill-based matchmaking, the microtransactions, the quality of the games, whatever it may be. These people just don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? They just don't care. So I think we're at a point where the Call of Duty fan base is just fractured. Like, you have the diehards who are just going to play all together no matter what. They don't care what game it is. It's Call of Duty. That's what they play. But the rest of us who, you know, we used to love Call of Duty, we want to still be fans of the game, but the game just isn't doing it enough for us, right? It's now divided the community to this point where the people still left behind, you know, who are playing or whatever, they're doing their thing. But the rest of us are just like, what the fuck is happening to this franchise? Like, is it ever going to be at a point where it's actually contending again, where it's actually still great again? Now, when it comes to sales and shit, sure, it's still the #1 selling game every year. But at this point, it's almost like a superficial number to me, you know? Back in the day, Call of Duty, it was like, oh, Black Ops 2 broke the Call of Duty sales record, best sales day on day one ever, right? And it was like, it used to mean something because more of those players used to actually stay. Like I said in my last video, I was playing Black Ops 2 until like 2016 while still playing every new COD that came out. You could actually play Call of Duty for more than like 3 weeks back in the day, right? Back in the golden age of Call of Duty. But we're now at a point where, you know, even though Call of Duty, it's going to break sales, you know, oh, Black Ops 19 is the best selling Black Ops ever, right? Like, yeah, it hits those numbers on day one for people who are like, you know, nostalgia baited or whatever. But look at the numbers 3 months in when they're still releasing content and when the season 3 or 4 update or whatever is coming out. It's so bad at this point that it's almost just sad to witness it at this point, because at no point ever should Call of Duty be at these numbers. You know what I mean? The average players over the last 30 days has never been this low in the last multiple years. There is clearly something wrong with Call of Duty from the numbers and from all the things that we can see. Whether people want to admit it or not, we know what we know now. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, wondering what the hell is happening to Call of Duty, and signing out.